Welcome to Carlton's Math Corner. Today we're going to continue our study on the Pythagorean theorem. At this time, please make sure you have your math journal, vocab packet, as well as something to write with. So today our target is I can find the length of a leg of a right triangle. Okay, so in the last video we learned that a right triangle has two legs and a hypotenuse. And if we square both of the legs and add them together, their sum should equal the square of the hypotenuse. And so our formula for the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, today I want you to notice that we have a leg that's going to be missing. So it could be leg A or it could be leg B, but either way, we're still going to use the same steps, okay? So I want you to observe what's going on over here, and I want you to come up with some steps. What is the first step? Well, the first step that I notice is that the leg that we know was squared, so 12 squared is 144, and then also the hypotenuse over here was squared. 24 squared is 576. Now, and then we just plug those numbers into the Pythagorean theorem. So 144 plus b squared, because we don't know what that is, equals 576. What's the second step? Yeah, this is actually an equation, and we need to solve for it. We need to solve for b. And in order to do that, we need to get b squared by itself. We need to isolate it. And the only way to do that is to get rid of this 144 so that it's all by itself on the left side of the equation. And in order to do that, we learned in the past that when we're solving equations, we always do the inverse operation. So since this is a positive 144, we're going to put minus 144 so that that cancels out to 0. And whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other side to keep it balanced. So we need to subtract 144 as well. And so 576 minus 144 is 432. Then what is the next step? Because this is a little different. Normally in the past, we would have our answer at this point because we haven't worked with anything that was squared before. We've only worked with like b equals, and then we have an answer. So what's our last step? Exactly. Do you notice that, 432, remember, is after everything's been squared. And we don't want that as an answer. We want to know what the length is of b, not b squared. And so in order to get rid of the square, remember in the last video we talked about the opposite of squaring something is taking the square root of it. So if we take the square root of b squared, it becomes b now. And if we take the square root of 432, what would we get as an answer? Well, let's try it out. Well, if I put it in a calculator, we'll just use Google Calculator. If I put in the square root of 432, this is what I get. I get 20.784609, etc., etc., etc. Well, let's say that we are rounding to the nearest hundredth. So I would have 20.78, and then I need to look at the thousandths place. Remember, if it's 5 or higher, then I round up. If it's lower than 5, then all I do is I just cross out all the numbers and I keep it the same. And so in this case, 20.78 will remain the same because the 4 is not high enough to bump that 8 to a 9. So 20.78 would be my answer. So I'm going to go back. We're going to put that in as my answer. So B is equal to 20.78. So that is the length of B. Okay? So the steps that we took. Well, we have to square the leg and the hypotenuse. So that's step number 1. We subtracted the leg from the hypotenuse. And the reason why it says subtract instead of doing the inverse operation is because your distance of the leg will always be positive. So no matter what, the inverse will always be subtraction. So this will always be our step number 2, is just to subtract. So once we subtract, then we can find the square root of the missing side and the difference. And we got an answer of 20.78. Nice job. At this time, I have 4 right triangles that have a missing leg. Will you please find those missing legs for me? Thank you so much for joining me at Carlton's Math Corner, and I look forward to meeting with you again.